Hi guys, Matt Easton here. So, thanks to film and historical novels and such like, there is a continuing idea that axes and maces fulfill a similar role in hand-to-hand fighting as swords do in an unarmoured or lightly armoured situation. And I did a video previously, which I'll put a link to below this, basically pointing out why swords are by far the best weapons to be used as a sidearm in an unarmoured, you know, for example, civilian or even a lightly armoured situation. Axes and maces and warhammers are designed to fulfill particular jobs, and largely, certainly by the sort of middle to late medieval period, they're really anti-armour weapons, and they're best used with a shield and with armour. Okay, in an unarmoured context, or where people maybe only have a helmet and a mail shirt, or only have a gambeson and a helmet, or even no helmet, maces and warhammers don't really measure up very well to swords. The main reason for that, as I highlighted in my previous video, is that it's much easier to wound someone with a sword than it is to wound them with a mace or an axe or a warhammer. Now, some people who are maybe fans of maces and warhammers, which is fine, they're cool weapons, I like them, as you see in my videos, and here I own examples and I like swinging them around and doing things with them. It's fine to like them and defend them, but at the same time you've got to recognise they have several key features which put them at a disadvantage in an unarmoured fight, especially if they're used alone, so we're assuming there's no shield, no buckler involved here. Put them at a disadvantage compared to a sword. And the two, let's say the three main disadvantages that a mace or a warhammer generally has against a sword in an unarmoured context is: number one, reach. They are generally speaking shorter than a sword. Number two, balance, and therefore speed. You can manoeuvre the sword much more quickly and nimbly than you can manoeuvre an axe or a mace or a warhammer. And lastly, the nature of the wounds caused by it. So something, for example, with a hammer or a mace, to really put someone out of action quickly, you need to hit them in, generally speaking, relatively specific parts of the body. Yes, you can get lucky, you might hit someone in the ribs and it might break a rib and puncture a lung and things like that. This might happen. However, with a sharp-edged sword, it is very, very easy to very badly wound an opponent. Even if you just hit them in the fingers, for example, you remove fingers. Won't happen with a mace. Could happen with an axe, but won't happen with a mace or a warhammer. But clearly it can open up big, bloody, deep wounds with relatively light contact, even with just sliding push cuts, draw cuts. Sharp swords are very dangerous, okay? And of course you have a very nimble point there that can run very easily straight through an unarmoured person with almost no resistance, okay? Maces, axes and warhammers require a percussive force, generally speaking, and require essentially a bit more effort to actually wound someone as well. However, when they do hit, yes, they might hit with more power, and that's why they're favoured in armoured fighting. I just want to show one, with the use of my assistant here, one key important factor that I mentioned before, of why the person with just a warhammer or a mace, we're using a warhammer here, has a huge disadvantage against the person with just a sword in an unarmoured fight. So imagine that the warhammer person takes a swing at me, okay? And you can see there that how close the person needs to be to hit me in the head or body. In other words, one of the things that's going to put me out of action from being hit by a warhammer, I'm not holding my arms out in front of me, so they have to aim for my head or my body, okay, pretty much. That's how close they have to be. Now you'll notice that is only actually about a foot, and this is a fairly average kind of horseman's hammer, short warhammer. It's only a foot in front of their hand. It's a very, very short reach, whereas the sword has about a 2-foot reach. So the simplest thing to do for me is to actually countercut into their attack. So if someone swings an axe or a mace and they're not wearing gauntlets, they're not wearing armour of any kind, if they want to swing and hit at me, it's the easiest thing in the world for me to back off slightly as they're coming in and bang, take a load of their fingers off. Okay, the mace, warhammer and axe have no hand protection whatsoever, and because they're short, it's very easy to hit those people in the hands. Okay, so one of your simplest options when a person swings one of these fairly top-heavy but short weapons at you is simply to bam, hit the person in the hands while moving your body and head out of distance. And it's not a risky manoeuvre at all, because all you're doing is you're putting your edge, and you can do it with the point incidentally as well, you're putting your edge into the path, into the trajectory that they're doing in trying to attack you. Okay, so it's like a parry, but instead of aiming to just stop the weapon, you're actually doing a defensive motion and hitting them in the hand at the same time, whilst being far enough away with your body and head that you're really not running much risk yourself. Okay, and there's various different angles that you can attack their hand with. Secondly, parrying is not difficult. Yes, if I just take the hammer for a second, when you swing a hammer or an axe, bam, it has a lot of momentum in it, and when it arrives at its target, it hits with a lot of force. However, a lot of force, but not a huge amount of force. Those people out there who maybe do reenactment or HEMA will know that it's not that difficult to parry a blow from an axe or a warhammer or a mace using a sword. It's just not that difficult, it's just about mechanics. And what you're aiming to do is, as the swing comes out, this is the end of the lever and this is the base of my lever. You catch the incoming blow with the base of your lever, and this is what we call strong against weak. Okay, this is known as the weak because it's the weakest for the assistant here. She has no real resistance to me pushing here, whereas she has a lot of resistance to me pushing at the base. So I use the base of my lever against the end of their lever. And you can either do it in sort of hanging parries, or rabats pushing off to the side, or beating on the inside, or just a straightforward block parry. Okay, so there's various ways you can defend against this weapon if you need to, but because you have the length advantage, you always have the option to just attack the person's hand. And if you're in an unarmed situation, I'd recommend doing this, because the person using an axe or a mace, their hands are very, very vulnerable. And lastly, I would say, when a weapon is a lot shorter than your sword, one option that's always available to you is to actually block and attack in the same move, and this can be done with, for example, a stop thrust. And I'll do this carefully because I'm demonstrating with a sharp sword here. So as the swing comes in, you can actually block the weapon here and drop the point into the person's face or body in the same manoeuvre. So you cover your line with the base of the weapon and drop the point into them with the end of your weapon. Stop thrusts are a mainstay of, in fencing across a wide period of time, and they require very good timing. However, they are very popular in rapier treatises, and indeed it's done in later sabre treatises as well. So there we go, various options and easy ways that the person with the sword can deal with an unarmoured person using a warhammer, a mace or an axe, assuming that they're using the usual short variety and obviously not the long pole weapon. When we get into long pole weapons, they tend to have the advantage over the sword. Okay, cheers!